Thanks, Duncan. Just to come back to basics for a start.
And everybody here now, by the way.
The crops we grow in Ireland, I suppose they're dictated really by three things: soil, climate and markets. And just a quick word about the climate. You all know it well enough. I mean, a maritime climate, cool summers, mild winters, humidity which on a 24-hour basis rarely drops below 80%. And I mean, that has a huge bearing on the way crops will respond to that climate, and the sort of the crops that respond best to it. The two classic ones would be grass and conifers. Both really like our climate and grow very well in it. They like a long growing season. They don't need a lot of heat, so they do very well. At the other end of the spectrum, crops like grain, maize, sunflower, soya, we need some more global warming before they'll make it in Ireland. And so that's reflected in the way we use our land. About 5 million hectares of land being used. 4.7 hectares in either grass or trees. A very small amount then into these crops. And so I mean, that's the logic behind the way things are developed. Now, in terms of changing land use patterns to accommodate more bioenergy production, I think we could straight away forget about the bottom one there. I mean, the hill and marginal land is really not suitable for growing anything. If it won't grow a food crop, it won't grow an energy crop, so we forget about it. Tillage crops, well, there is some scope for using some of our existing tillage land to produce, in particular, produce transport fuels. There isn't great scope for increasing it, because if somebody this morning, I think it was Mark Rutledge, was making the point that you start tilling land, you tend to release carbon, and you will be undoing the benefit of producing the biofuel, or at least most of it. So some scope there, but not huge. I think if we're talking about changing our land, well, forestry, I think we do need to increase. There are generous schemes there supporting an increase in forestry at the present moment. The increase is slow. It's difficult to persuade farmers to make the change. It will happen, but at what rate, I'm not too sure. We have to look mainly at the 4 million hectares that's currently in grass, in particular the 2.5 million that's in dry stock. Is there scope for taking some of that land and putting it into not annual tillage crops where you will be tilling land, but perennial crops, where there won't be tillage, where you won't be running into soil carbon issues. In fact, you may end up increasing the soil carbon. And I think they're the ones we really need to focus on for substantial quantities of energy production. I mean, what we need to look at is that big blue area there in the middle. That's the dry stock, mainly dry stock farming. The scope that's there for change of use. And I think we should bear in mind that in the middle of that area you have the 3 peat burning stations which are now looking for biomass to meet their obligations to coal-fire. And that's something that we need to be looking at very seriously. And I think if we're to achieve a substantial amount of bioenergy production in the country, that's the best opportunity that's there. As to what is the potential? If there's 4.5 million hectares of land, it's reasonably good land. If we put the whole lot down to biofuel crops, and they yield 10 tonnes per hectare of dry material, which is not unreasonable, and that would have an energy content of about 4 megawatt hours per tonne, we'd end up with 180 terawatt hours. Our total energy use is just about that. I think who was it? Brian Norton had said 184. I think Larry, you said 100 something. Anyway, we won't say 180 round figure. So I say if we put down forget about food production and just produce energy, we could just about produce our total energy need from biomass, and that's what that defines the potential of the long run. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be a serious proposition to think of going anywhere near that. We're a food-producing country. We will continue to be mainly a food-producing country and a food exporting country. But I mean, there is a very strong case for looking at converting of some land for energy production, from energy security point of view, from greenhouse gas point of view. It's just a question of a strategic decision, how far along the line should we go in converting. If we wanted to produce enough liquid biofuel to supply our agriculture so that in the event of an emergency we could still produce food, we will need about 300,000 hectares of our land, about 3/4 of our total tillage area. Probably not practical to go that far, but we should be going some way along the ways, I'd say, to give us some sort of a secure supply of liquid biofuel, if only, I say, to keep agriculture ticking over in an emergency. If we go the road of sowing crops where the whole crop is used for energy production, and we wanted to produce, say, 10% of our total energy requirement, it would take about 500,000 hectares of the 4.5 or 5 million hectares of land we have. In other words, about 10% of our land. We're back to the same thing again. Convert 1% of our land can supply about 1% of our energy, of our total energy needs. Now, to talk first of all about transport biofuels, liquid biofuels for cars and tractors and so on. There's 5 options there that we can consider. Most of them are in practice in some sort of a scale at this stage in Ireland, but in a pretty small way. The first one there, plant oil, there's 4 little units around the country producing basically rapeseed oil, filtered, pressed out, filtered, and used in modified engines. And it's quite a successful fuel, very little problem engine-wise. The units themselves, pretty simple to operate. They have been able to produce, by and large, oil of a quality that didn't give any problems in using it. They're having a lot of difficulty in the market, mainly difficulty paying the sort of price that we have to pay for rapeseed oil and producing the fuel at a price competitive with diesel, and that has been a difficulty for them. They're still there, they're struggling on, but not making enough out of money.